You guys should have done the homework on chapter 6 now and viewed the homework solutions video and again listened to my wonderful monotone voice. And now we're on chapter 7, and like I said, this is the second and last chapter for module 2, so you'll be having a test coming up shortly. Um, as I told you, this class does go by quickly. It's 4 weeks, but it has the same exact information that I use in my normal semester classes, and it has the same tests, so you guys are learning everything that you need to learn in a shorter period of time. So we've got some competencies for cost volume and profit analysis. We need to describe the CVP analysis and identify its major assumptions and limitations. We need to use cost volume profit equations to determine the revenue required to reach specific levels of profit and to break even. So here are the assumptions: that fixed costs remain fixed, that variable costs fluctuate in a linear fashion with revenues, and what that means, along with the next one, is that our variable costs are constant. You know, in real life, we might get discounts for volume and things like that. But when we're doing the CVP analysis, we need to assume that they stay the same. And then mixed costs can be divided into their fixed and variable elements, as we did in the last chapter. And then the last two is that all costs can be assigned to individual operating departments. And we're actually not going to look at multiple departments in this lecture, and that the CVB model considers only quantitative factors and not qualitative factors. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start running. The first thing we have, if you look up top, is we've got some formulas. Contribution margin, that's CM, is defined as sales minus variable costs. And if we go ahead and look at our break even in units, we have fixed costs divided by sales minus variable costs, or contribution margin. And if we do our break even in dollars, we have break even equals fixed costs divided by contribution margin ratio, which is sales minus variable cost divided by sales. And if you look at that formula, especially divided by sales, remember, if we divide by a fraction, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So if we went ahead and took our break even in units and multiplied it by the selling price, we would get our break even in dollars. Sometimes you're given a contribution margin ratio and you have to know that the break even is or that your answer is in dollars. But if you're going through a problem like the one we have below, I would just go ahead and multiply by units by the selling price to find out the dollar amount. Okay, so let's assume we have a single food operation where your annual fixed costs are $50,000 and your variable cost per unit is $3 and your selling price is $8. So what's your annual break even in units? We're going to go ahead and take that first formula for break even, which was fixed cost divided by sales minus variable costs, and we're going to plug in the numbers, and we get 50,000 divided by 8 minus 3, and that tells us that our break even with $50,000 worth of fixed costs is 10,000 units. And secondly, what's our break even in dollars? We could just simply take that 10,000 units and multiply it by the selling price, like I told you before, which was $8, and get $80,000. Or we go ahead and do the long formula and plug all those numbers in and do the math, and we'll still get $80,000. So like I said, we may have been given contribution margin ratio in the problem, and if that's the case, then you'll need to be able to do the calculations to get the break even with the ratio of I guess it would be a fraction. It's 8 minus 3, so 5/8 is what it would be. It would be 0.4, and that would be the contribution margin ratio. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take a step further, and we're going to look at a pre-tax situation. And if you look, our formulas changed a little bit. Instead of having break even in units and break even in dollars, now we just have X. We're solving for X instead of BE, or break even, which is pretty simple. And the only difference between these formulas and the ones that you just had are that we add income, or our desired income, to our fixed costs. So if we look at the example, let's say that we have that same operation that we just calculated our fixed cost for in the last slide, which gave us a $50,000 in fixed costs and $8 in selling price and $3 in variable costs. And we want to make $20,000. We go ahead and we do the math, and we add $50,000 and $20,000 together, and we subtract 8 from 3, and we get 1,400 units. And then if you look down again and we want to know the dollar amount, it's the same exact thing as we did before. We're going to actually go ahead and take our units and multiply it by the selling price, and we get $112,000, or we can do it the long way and we get $112,000. I am going to provide you with the formulas for the test, so you don't have to memorize the formulas, but you are going to have to be able to interpret what you get and do some manipulation to find some answers. So if you just go ahead and memorize these problems, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, now let's look at this. If we want to know our pre-tax dollars, in reality we wouldn't be able to do our after-tax. That was more of just an exercise to get to this step. So we're taking this one step further now, and if you look at those formulas, I have IB instead of IN in there, and we need to go ahead and calculate IB, and we do that by taking our income and divide it by 1 minus the tax rate. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what our pre-tax income is to get an after-tax income of $20,000. And we take our $20,000, we divide it by 1 minus the tax rate, which is 0.3, and our answer is $28,571.43. How many dollars would we need to sell? How much in dollars would you need to sell to make $28,571.43 pre-tax, or $20,000 after tax? Well, we go ahead and we use that second formula, and we plug in our numbers, and our answer is $125,714.28. So again, what we did is we actually had to first calculate our IB. And we did that by taking our desired income of $20,000 and dividing it by 1 minus the tax rate, and we got $28,571. And then we plugged that into the formula. Our formula actually should say fixed costs at the bottom of the page plus IB as it does up top. And divided by sales minus variable cost divided by sales. So we plug in those numbers, we add the 50,000 to the 28,571.43, and we divide that by 5 divided by 8, and we get 125,714.28.